This is Bill Rao, founder and CEO of Swissgoldglobal. And you know, it's really been an interesting journey the last 10 years. I can go back all the way to 2003, where I met this gentleman, Philip Judge, who's been a Bullion banker now for 30 years. In fact, it's been Philip that introduced me to the world of precious metals. And before I introduce Philip, I just want to tell a short story. The meeting that we had at the Grant Thornton accountancy office in Zurich was really interesting. I'd come in from Australia, looking at investing into an international energy fund, and I walked into this boardroom at the Grant Thornton office. I'll never forget Philip's words. He said, "Bill, we as a company only invest in products from the earth." And Philip went on to go into a story and explain the importance of owning gold and silver, tangible assets, real tangible wealth. Well, today it's been my real pleasure to be again here with Philip in Lugano, not far from the Argo refinery. And I really wanted to, Philip, thank you for taking the time for again to catch up after all these years.
Great, Bill. Good to be with you today.
And I was going to ask Philip, you know, from those words he shared with me back in 2003, today the world has changed much since then. But how does the tangible wealth play in today's world fundamentally compared to a world where we're living in a digital world as well, with the unleash of cryptocurrencies? Maybe you'd like to share your thoughts on that with us, Philip.
Sure. Okay, Bill. So I think more than any other time in history, we're going through just massive changes. And I think even some of the top minds in this planet are still trying to figure out what's happening in the emerging technologies, for example, and how does that in fact impact what we've talked about in the past so often about tangible wealth in the more traditional form. You know, we've talked about whether that be, you know, agricultural production, which feeds us and sustains our physical life on this planet, or to what was traditionally true money, being gold and silver. And then, of course, nowadays you've got what could almost be called disruptive technologies, such things as cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, this kind of thing. And so some of the top minds are really trying, in the whole world, are trying to get a handle on how do these two things sort of overlap. On top of that, of course, we've got uncertainties in the geopolitical space, and of course definitely in the financial arenas, which is unprecedented in many, many ways. We're a global economy now. We have been for some decades, but of course the speed of everything is changing so radically. You've got your traditional financial system, international banking and this type of thing, which now is being challenged by the emergence of blockchain and peer-to-peer and cryptocurrencies and this kind of thing. So more than at any other time, I think there's so many transitions happening. And I guess for a lot of people, it comes back to, you know, how do we face tomorrow? And so with some of the top people that we work with, you know, whether it be family offices, fund managers, wealth managers, they're really coming back to the traditional model of diversification. Don't hold all your assets in one form. Traditionally, that might be real estate, equities, you know, government treasuries or bonds, that sort of thing. But so there's a new approach to how we look at the diversification model. A lot of people for a long time have always held some precious metals, and I think that's a very, very smart thing. Of course, some allocation of assets to cash, but again, now we're talking about the emergence of cryptocurrencies, this sort of thing, and people are starting to look at how do we get some diversification, therefore protection, in this kind of emerging technologies. So it's something of a waiting game, Bill, but I think what we have to do is always be diversified, take a position in as safely as possible in all these different areas a little bit, and just be very, very cautious. But at the same time, not so cautious that you don't do anything. This is something, one of the other things that we see a lot nowadays is people are paralyzed. There's this paralysis of fear that is really the wrong approach in life. You know, we can't sit back. A lot of people today sitting with millions, or depending on their situation, hundreds of thousands of dollars just sitting parked in a bank account in cash because these people are so paralyzed with fear, Bill. And I guess you're seeing a lot of this. So we have to, I guess, take this diversification kind of model and see how we can best apply it. I know with what you're doing with Swissgoldglobal, you've really taken that approach by looking at what is traditional money, how can people get exposure to that, as well as, of course, having exposure to what's happening in the crypto world, which is emerging very, very quickly and changing quickly. So I applaud you for what you're doing with Swissgoldglobal, and thank you for this time.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. And you know, as a mentor, you've been a mentor and a great friend for many years now with myself. But one of the lessons that really intrigued me many years ago was how wealth is created. And you actually went back to really a simple story that, you know, as man and woman, we're given the dominion over the natural resources of the planet Earth, and it's the application of our labour to those resources that created wealth.
Right.
And today, of course, with the crypto world, we see a lot of people, maybe emotionally, with the fear and greed emotion, which drives markets, of course, going into these things with cryptocurrency. Maybe it's the greed factor, of course, hoping to make a quick win. So you used the word safety before. So my message to our members out there is have a plan, manage your risk. Philip also used the word diversification. You know, gold and silver, as Philip taught me many years ago, has been money for 5,000 years. Central banks own it. Well, with Swissgoldglobal, you can become your own private central bank. But diversifying into cryptocurrencies and into liquid wealth through our mining contracts is a great way to be able to tap in safely. And as you get more understanding, you can increase your exposure. But do have a plan. And Philip, it's been a real great pleasure to catch up with you again.
Thank you, Bill.
Here in beautiful Lugano.
Great to be with you again. All the best to you all.